Stelda, thank you very much for your time. What are the main theories around why Africa hasn't been as hard hit? Is it because we have, by and large, a much younger population than other parts of the world?
Yeah, as you say, they're theories. We've seen the evidence shift and move a lot, Sally, but the demographics for sure, that younger population that we've had for a long time, that youth bulge is seeing a real dividend. There's no doubt that youthful population, the way this disease affects people, pre-existing conditions as well, it tends to affect people with things like heart disease and asthma, again, not common ailments here. There are other theories as well around previous things like, SARS and so on, that equally there was already some sort of potentially built-in immune system defence in the continent. Again, people are working with all these theories, but it does seem as well, while we look at cases are not always accurate because not all countries have the testing ability as, say, South Africa. Deaths is what you look at, and you're absolutely right. Deaths in the continent as a percentage are very, very low compared to other places. As a percentage of everyday deaths, they're even smaller, which is what you're alluding to about other measures having a bigger risk than maybe the pandemic. But so far, after governments and mums and dads have worked so hard on this, we're starting to see some good news.
Yes, and I was just reading a media report on the African Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, and saying that it looks like Africa is actually through the worst. Obviously, South Africa is mostly through the worst, but are there other countries that are of concern?
Without a doubt, there's a lot of countries in the region where I am standing right now in Kenya. Kenya is probably, at its peak. We'll see in the next couple of weeks if that starts to go down. Other countries are still approaching that. It depends when they started containment measures and so on. But we haven't seen any outliers. We haven't seen any countries peak for an inordinate amount of time. So we feel they will peak and decline. And again, the deaths are low. Containment measures have, been more or less on track. And now we've got to make sure the containment measures, of course, don't do more damage to economies, to mums and dads, to children, to women seeking health care, and so on.
Yes, exactly. And, with the advantage of having a younger population on our continent, it raises the question of schools and education. It's such a difficult debate. It is so polarising. Here in South Africa, we're just coming to the end of about another, I think it's been a month almost, of a further lockdown on our schools as we were hitting the peak. But it's really been a difficult debate. I'm just wondering, with the symposium that was held today, what was the thinking around schooling during COVID-19, and whether there was a sort of a finite position, because it's so hard to find one?
Absolutely. I think in a nutshell, my boss, my regional director, encapsulated, this is an unprecedented education crisis. We know what needs to be done. We need to galvanise teachers, parents, government to get safe systems in place, but kids must be in school. Otherwise, we risk a lost generation. I think he captured that so well. Sally, when we balance the harm being done to kids not being in school versus the pandemic, there is more danger for them not to be there. Remembering there's a contextual thing here, that if kids aren't in school, they're still running around their communities in rural areas or in urban areas. They're not lockdowns like in South Africa. We know that teenage pregnancy, from those harsh lessons from Ebola, skyrockets. We were dealing with that for the next 10 years. We might see more than 10 million kids in this region never go back to school. And that's beyond the protection measures, the education, the nutrition. So the countries have done a good job, but kids here, given all the different contexts that you very clearly outlined, children need to be in school. Evidence is pointing, get the kids back in the class. Do it smart, do it safe, but get them back to school.
I read a very disturbing report as well that suggests that girls are at even more risk of dropout than boys. Is that what those are the things that you're finding out about as well?
Without a doubt. Both our evidence is clear. The harsh lessons we learnt from Ebola, it hits girls much harder. The lessons we're seeing here in this region already. My own personal anecdotes when I go out into communities, keeping social distancing, but to do work, and you talk to young girls who realise they're gone. They won't get back to school. That decision's now been made. And then they're at risk of violence. Well, not at risk, it's happening. Violence rates are up. Teen pregnancy is up. Now, that is a problem that they and their communities will face in 10 years' time, way after COVID. And the flip side, if we keep them in school, we know there's no better investment a government can make in its society. Educated girls are just a hands-down winner. They delay having children. Their children are better educated, better nourished. They earn much more money. So it's really clear. But the human story of that, when you see a young girl who was doing well against odds in school and now out and thinks she won't get in, that's heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Such an important message. James Elder, Chief of Communication for Unicef in Southern and Eastern Africa.